Hello and welcome back to the WholeHearted Living Podcast. I'm Debs Thorpe and it's so great to have you here. So this is episode 9 of series 2 and today we're going on a journey, but not out into the world, inwards to the landscape of yourself. We're going to be mapping your inner landscape. We're getting to know all of you. Now, if you've been following along with this series, you've learned about radical honesty, understanding your trauma responses, cultivating self-compassion and setting boundaries. And all of that work has been preparing you for this, where we meet all the parts of yourself. Because here's the truth, you're not one single unified self, you're many. You have the critic who tells you you're not good enough, you have the protector who tries to keep you safe, you have the wounded child who carries your pain, you have the perfectionist who demands excellence. You've got the people pleaser who wants to keep everyone happy. You've got the rebel who resists being told what to do. You have the wise self, your higher self, your true self, who knows the truth beneath it all. And all of these parts, they're all you. They all live inside you. They all have voices. They all have needs. They all have roles they're trying to play. And you're with yourself 24/7. So think about that for a moment. You can leave a difficult relationship, you can quit a draining job, you can move away from a toxic environment, but you cannot leave yourself. You are the one relationship you can never escape. So the question becomes, what is it like to be with you? What's the internal environment you're living in every single day? Is it chaotic, judgmental, exhausting, or is it curious, compassionate, integrated? Today we're going to explore why you're not one unified self and why that's actually a gift, the different parts that make up your inner landscape, why curiosity is more powerful than judgment when exploring your inner world, what integration actually means and why it's not about eliminating parts, and how to create an internal home with rooms for all your parts and a sacred garden where you can just be. This is stage 5 of the WholeHearted technique, and it's where everything starts to come together. Because when you understand your inner landscape, you can choose which part leads. You can create internal harmony instead of internal war. You can finally feel at home with yourself. Peaceful. So let's take a breath, let's get curious, and let's begin. Let's start with something that might feel a bit strange at first. This concept that you are not one unified self, you are many selves. Now, I'm not talking about dissociative identity disorder or anything clinical. I'm talking about something that's true for all of us. We all have different parts of ourselves that show up in different situations. Think about it. There's the version of you at work, maybe professional, competent, composed. There's the version of you with your family, potentially a bit more reactive, maybe playing out an old role you learned as a child. There's the version of you with your closest friends, maybe more relaxed, playful, authentic. There's the version of you when you're alone, the one that no one else sees. There's the version of you when you're stressed, maybe a bit short-tempered, you shut down or you're in overdrive. There's the version of you when you're rested and grounded, maybe more patient, present-wise. These aren't masks that you're wearing, these are parts of you. And here's what's important to understand. All of these parts developed for a reason. They're not random, they're not problems to fix, they're intelligent adaptations to your life experiences. The critic tried to keep you safe from rejection by making sure you were good enough. The protector developed to shield you from pain by keeping people at a distance or by staying hypervigilant. The people pleaser was developed to secure love and belonging by making sure everyone else was happy. The perfectionist developed to give you a sense of control in a world that felt chaotic. Every part of you is trying to help, even the ones that seem to be causing problems. And this is why judgment doesn't work, Because when you judge a part of yourself, or when you try to eliminate it, suppress it, or shame it, that part just gets louder. It fights harder. It takes over more. But when you get curious, when you ask, what is this part trying to do for me? Everything shifts. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds exhausting. I don't want to be multiple selves. I just want to be me. And I get that. But here's the gift. When you understand that you have different parts, you realize you have a choice. You're not stuck being one way. You're not defined by your worst moments or your most reactive patterns. You have a critic, but you also have a coach. You have a wounded child, but you also have a wise self. You have a protector who tries to keep people out, for example, but you also have a nurturer who knows how to connect. You contain multitudes, and that means you have options. The question isn't, how do I get rid of the parts I don't like? The question is, how do I understand all my parts so I can choose which one leads? So let's start mapping your inner landscape. Let's meet some of the most common parts. And as I describe these, notice which ones feel familiar. Notice which ones you recognize yourself in, and how they might manifest in you. The critic. We've talked about this one a lot already, especially in previous episodes. The critic is the voice that tells you you're not good enough, you should have done better, everyone else has it figured out. What it's trying to do is to keep you safe from rejection by making sure you're perfect enough to be loved. What it actually does, though, is keeps you stuck in shame, anxiety, and self-doubt. What it needs is to know that you're safe now, that you don't have to be perfect to be worthy. The protector. This is the part that keeps you safe by controlling your environment, staying hypervigilant, or keeping people at a distance. It might show up as feeling like you've got walls up around your heart, difficulty trusting, always scanning for danger, needing to control outcomes or shutting down emotionally. What it's trying to do is protect you from being hurt again. And what it actually does is keeps you isolated and disconnected. What it needs is to know that you can handle difficulty now, that you have resources, that not everyone is a threat. The wounded child. This is the part of you that carries your pain, your unmet needs, your early wounds. It might show up as feeling small and powerless, feeling in a victim mode, desperately wanting to be seen and loved, feeling abandoned or rejected, crying easily, needing reassurance. What it's trying to do is to get the love, safety, and care it didn't receive. What it actually does is it can keep you stuck in old patterns, seeking from others what you need to give yourself. What it needs is to be held, witnessed, and reassured by your adult self, to know that you're here now and you're not going anywhere. The perfectionist. So this part demands excellence in everything. Nothing is ever good enough. There's always more to do, more to improve, more to achieve. It might show up as relentless standards, the inability to celebrate wins, constant self-improvement, fear of failure, procrastination, because if it can't be perfect, then why start? What it's trying to do is give you a sense of control and worth through achievement. What it actually does is keeps you exhausted, never satisfied, and disconnected from joy. What it needs is to know that your worth is not tied to your productivity, that you're enough as you are. And we have the people pleaser. This part prioritizes everyone else's needs, feelings, and desires over your own. It says yes when it means no. It performs to be liked. It might show up as difficulty saying no, or over-explaining and over-apologizing, anxiety about disappointing people, losing yourself in relationships, and resentment because you're giving more than you have. What it's trying to do is secure love and belonging by being good and easy. What it actually does is keeps you disconnected from yourself and exhausted from performing. What it needs is to know that you're lovable as you are, that you don't have to earn love through service. And we have the rebel. The rebel resists being told what to do. It pushes back against rules, expectations, and shoulds. It might show up as self-sabotage, so you just do the opposite of what you should do. resistance to structure or routine, maybe anger at authority, procrastination as protest, I'll do it my way or not at all. What it's trying to do is protect your autonomy and freedom, assert that you have agency. What it's actually doing is keeping you stuck in reactivity instead of aligned action. What it needs is to know that you're in charge now, that you get to choose, that following your own wisdom isn't the same as following everyone else's rules. And then there's the achiever who's always doing, always building, always reaching for the next goal. It finds worth in accomplishment. It might show up as constant productivity, difficulty resting, identity tied to achievement, moving the goalposts, you're never satisfied, burnout. What it's trying to do is prove your worth through what you accomplish. What it actually does is keeps you running on empty, disconnected from presence and joy. What it needs is to know that no matter whether you achieve or not, that you are valuable, that you are worthy, that being is as valuable as doing. And then the wise self is the part of you that's grounded, present, and connected to your wholeness. It's the part that knows the truth beneath all the noise. It might show up as clarity in difficult moments, compassion for yourself and others, groundedness in your body, knowing what you need and trusting in your path. What it offers is wisdom, presence, compassion, integration. What it needs is space, silence, and your attention. Other parts that you might recognize are the nurturer, the part that cares for others and knows how to offer comfort, the playful child, the part that's curious, creative, joyful, and free, the warrior, the parts that fights for what matters, sets boundaries and protects, the hermit, the part that needs solitude, introspection, and withdrawal, the performer, the part that shows up for others, presents well, and gets things done. All of these parts are you, and all of them have value. Now, you might be wondering, why does this matter? Why do I need to know about all these parts? Here's why. You are with yourself 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, your entire life. You can leave that difficult relationship, you can quit a toxic job, you can move away from a challenging environment, but you cannot leave yourself. You are the one relationship you can never escape. So it's important that we ask ourselves the question, what is it like to be with ourselves? What's the internal environment you're living in every single day? Think about it this way. If your critic is running the show 24/7, what is that internal environment like? It's like living with someone who constantly tells you you're not good enough, you should have done better, everyone else is ahead of you. That's exhausting, it's demoralizing, it's suffocating. If your protector is running the show, what's that like? It's like living in a fortress. You're safe, but you're alone. You're protected, but you're isolated. And if your wounded child is running the show, what's that like? It's like living with someone who's constantly in pain, constantly needing reassurance, constantly feeling abandoned. If your perfectionist is running the show, what's that like? It's like living with someone who's never satisfied, always demanding more, always moving the goalpost. The internal environment you create matters because you live there. And here's the thing, the relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship in your life. If you're constantly criticizing yourself, you'll either attract people who criticize you because it feels familiar, or push people away who are kind to you because it feels foreign. If you don't trust yourself, you won't trust others. If you abandon yourself, you'll either cling to others for validation or push them away before they can leave you. If you judge parts of yourself, you'll judge those same parts in others. The way you relate to your inner landscape is the way you relate to the world. So, when you learn to meet all your parts with curiosity and compassion, when you create an internal environment where all parts are welcome, you change everything. You change how you feel in your own skin. You change how you show up in relationships. You change how you move through the world. This is why mapping your inner landscape matters. not only because you are with yourself 24/7 and you deserve to feel at home with yourself, but because it sets the tone for the ripple effect through the rest of your life. So, how do you actually explore your inner landscape? How do you get to know these different parts? The answer is curiosity. Not judgment, not criticism, not trying to fix or eliminate, curiosity. So, here's what judgment sounds like. Why do I always do this? What's wrong with me? I hate this part of myself. I need to get rid of this. Judgment shuts down exploration. It makes parts defensive. It creates internal war. Here's what curiosity sounds like. I notice I'm doing this again. I wonder why. What is this part trying to do for me right now? When did I first learn this pattern? What does this part need? Curiosity opens doors. It creates space. It invites parts to speak. When you notice a part showing up, get curious. What are you trying to protect me from right now? When did you first show up in my life? What do you think will happen if you're not in charge? What do you need from me? What are you afraid of? These questions shift you from fighting your parts to understanding them. And when you understand them, you can work with them instead of against them. So here's how to practice curiosity with your parts. Firstly, notice when a part shows up. Oh, there's my critic. There's my protector. There's my people pleaser. Just notice, no judgment, no action, just, oh, there you are. Secondly, get curious. I wonder what triggered this part. I wonder what this part is trying to do for me. Thirdly, ask the part directly. You can do this in your journal or just speak internally. Critic, what are you trying to protect me from right now? And then listen and see what comes up. Fourthly, thank the part. Even if it's causing problems, thank it for trying to help. Thank you for keeping me safe. I know you're doing your best. This practice changes everything, because when your parts feel seen and understood, they don't have to fight so hard for your attention. They can relax. They can trust that you've got this. And here's what's truly transformative about curiosity. It gives you back your power. It gives you choice where you didn't have any before. Think about what usually happens when a part takes over. Your critic starts screaming that you're not good enough, and suddenly you're spiraling. You're paralysed. You're stuck in shame. Your protector slams the walls up, and suddenly you're isolated. You're shut down. You can't even connect when you want to. Your people pleaser says yes to something you don't have capacity for, and suddenly you're overcommitted and resentful and exhausted. When a part takes over, it feels like you have no choice. It feels like you're being hijacked. But curiosity changes that, because when you can notice, oh, my critic is loud right now, you've created space, you've stepped back, you've created distance between you and that part. And in that space, you have a choice. You can stop, you can pause, you can take a breath and ask, do I want this part to be in charge right now? What would my wise self choose instead? What would the integrated version of this part be saying and doing right now? So let me give you an example of this. Your critic is loud. It's telling you that you're failing, that you're not good enough, that everyone else is ahead of you, that they're better than you. In the past, you would have just believed it. You would have spiraled. You would have been stuck. But now, with curiosity, you can pause and ask, what would my integrated critic be saying right now? And you might realise the integrated critic isn't trying to shame you, it's trying to help you see clearly. So instead of you're failing, you're not good enough, the integrated critic might say, this approach isn't working. Let's look at what we can adjust and let's learn from this. Do you see the difference? It's the same part, the same intention, which is trying to help you improve, but one version is destructive and one version is constructive. And you get to choose which version you listen to. This is what I mean when I say curiosity gives you back your power. You are no longer at the mercy of whichever part is loudest. You can notice when a part has taken over, you can thank it for trying to help, and you can ask what it needs. And then you can choose a different part to lead, or you can integrate that part. You can ask, what would the integrated version of this part do? You have a choice, you have agency, you are in charge. And that is profoundly life-changing, because for so many of us, we've spent our entire lives feeling like we're being controlled by our patterns, by our reactions, our parts. We felt powerless, we felt stuck. We felt like this is just who I am. But that's not true. You're not stuck with the loudest version of your parts. You're not stuck with the one that's triggered in that moment. You can integrate them. You can choose which version leads. And curiosity is what makes that possible. So here's how you practice this. Firstly, notice when a part has taken over. So my critic is really loud right now, for example. Take a breath, literally stop just for a second and breathe. This is what creates the space and reminds you I have a choice here. Then ask, do I want this part to be in charge right now? Sometimes the answer might be yes. Sometimes your protector is right, something isn't safe. Sometimes your achiever is right, you do need to focus and get something done. But oftentimes the answer is no. Choose a different part or ask what the integrated version would do. What would my wise self choose right now? What would my integrated critic say instead? What would my compassionate self do? And then act from that place. Make the decision, speak the words, take the action from the part you've chosen, not the part that hijacked you. This is how you reclaim your power, not by eliminating parts, not by suppressing them, but by choosing which one leads. And that changes everything. Now, here's where people often get confused. They think, okay, I've identified my parts. Now, how do I get rid of the ones I don't like? And that's the wrong question. Integration is not about eliminating parts. It's about welcoming all the parts while choosing which one leads. Just let me say that again because it's crucial. All the parts of you are welcome, but not all parts get to drive. Integration means that all of your parts have a seat at the table. All of your parts get to be heard, they get to be acknowledged and valued. But your wise self, your true self, your higher self, your grounded, compassionate, present self is the one making decisions. It's like a counsel, you know, your critic gets to speak, I'm worried we're not good enough, and your wise self hears it. Thank you for your concern, but I've got this. Your protector gets to speak, I'm scared we're going to get hurt. Your wise self, I understand, and I'm going to take care of us. Your wounded child gets to speak, I'm sad and I need comfort. Your wise self hears it, I see you, I'm here, you're not alone. Integration is listening to all the voices while staying grounded in your center. And here's why you can't just get rid of the parts you don't like. Because they developed for a reason. Your critic, your protector, your people pleaser, they all showed up to help you survive. They kept you safe when you had no other options. You can't just eliminate them. They're part of your history. They're part of your story. But also what you resist persists. When you try to suppress or eliminate a part, it just gets louder. It just fights harder. It becomes more stubborn. It takes over more. Because that part thinks, they're trying to get rid of me. I need to fight for my survival. You know, and every part has their gifts. Even the parts that seem problematic, they have gifts when they're integrated. The critic, when integrated, becomes discernment. It helps you see clearly and make wise choices. The protector, when integrated, becomes healthy boundaries. It helps you know when something isn't safe. The perfectionist, when integrated, becomes excellence. It helps you create beautiful work without the suffering. The people pleaser, when integrated, becomes genuine care. It helps you show up for others from a full cup. Every part has value when it's not in the driver's seat and when it's integrated. So fragmentation is when your parts are at war with each other. Your critic is attacking your wounded child. Your protector is shutting out your nurturer. Your achiever is overriding your need for rest. Your rebel is sabotaging your perfectionist. It's chaos. It's exhausting. It's like living in a house where everyone's screaming and no one's listening. Integration is when all of your parts are in conversation with each other and your wise self is facilitating. Your critic speaks and your wise self hears the concern and then chooses compassion. Your protector speaks and your wise self says, I understand you're scared and I'm going to take a risk here because it's aligned. Your wounded child speaks and your wise self says, I see you, I'm here, let me hold you. Integration is harmony. It's all the parts working together with your wise self leading. It's how you get that much coveted inner peace. So create a space for all of your parts to have an internal dialogue. You can do this in journaling, or this is where coaching's a really good avenue for this. I know it sounds like a lot of work here, but when we allow all of our parts to have a voice and not shut anyone down, and we listen without judgment, it actually becomes a lot easier to navigate our inner world. We begin to understand and be able to access the different parts of us, and it gives us choice. We get to thank each part for having an input. We acknowledge that it has played a role in our life so far, but then we let our wise self decide. After the parts have had a voice, this doesn't need to be a long drawn out process, especially once you've got to be more intimate and more connected with these parts. This can actually be a really quick conversation that you have with yourself. One thing that you can do along this journey to help is to reassure the parts that didn't get their way. If your critic wanted you to stay small and your wise self chose to take a risk, you can reassure your critic. I know you're scared. I'm going to take care of us. You don't have to be in charge right now. You get to rest. This is integration. This is wholeness. Now, I want to share an analogy I use with my clients, and it's one that brings this whole concept of the inner landscape to life. So imagine your inner world now as a house with a garden. So the house is where all of your parts live. Each part has a room, or maybe some parts share a room. Maybe some rooms are bigger than others. Maybe some are cluttered, some are cozy, some feel cold. You get to design this house. This is all just in your imagination. You get to create the rooms that feel good to your parts. You get to rearrange the furniture. You get to open doors that have been closed. You get to explore rooms that you've been avoiding. Maybe your critic has been living in the dark, cramped in a room, always on guard, always vigilant, never resting. What if you gave your critic a different room? One with windows, one with light, one where it can see clearly without being in survival mode all the time. Maybe your wounded child has been locked in a room, alone, crying, waiting for someone to come. What if you opened that door? What if you sat with that part? What if you brought your wise self into that room and said, I'm here now, you're not alone anymore? Maybe your achiever has taken over the entire house. Every room is about productivity, achievement, doing more. What if you gave your achiever just one room, a beautiful room, an important room, but not the whole house? You get to design the internal house you live in. You get to decide which parts get which rooms. You get to decide how much space each part gets. You get to move through the house and visit different parts. You get to rearrange things when they're not working. This is your house. You're in charge. And then outside the house, down a little footpath, there's a garden. This is your sacred space. This is not where your parts live. This is where you go when you need a break from all the parts, from all the voices, from all the activity in the house. This garden is designed in the most perfect way to provide you with peace, nourishment, and relaxation. Maybe there's a bench under a tree where you can just sit and breathe. Maybe there's a fountain with the sound of water. Maybe there are flowers, herbs, vegetables growing. Maybe there's soft grass where you can lie down and look at the sky. This garden is yours. It's exactly what you need it to be. And here's what's important. When it all gets too much, when the parts in the house are loud, when there's too much activity, when you need some space, you can walk out the door, down the footpath, and into the garden. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to entertain a conversation. You don't have to solve anything. You don't have to integrate anything in this moment. You just get to drop down into this place and just be. This is your sacred space. This is where you return to your wholeness and yourself. Here's how to work with this analogy. When you're exploring your parts, imagine walking through the house. Which room do you want to visit? Which part do you want to talk to? Open the door, sit with that part, ask it what it needs, thank it for being here. When you're feeling overwhelmed, notice that the house is chaotic. Maybe all the parts are talking at once. Maybe they're all vying for your attention. Maybe your critic is yelling from one room and your wounded child is crying from another. And instead of trying to fix it all right now, just acknowledge, it's loud in here, I need a break. And then walk out of the door, down the footpath, into the garden. Sit, breathe, just be. When you need to make a decision, imagine gathering all your parts in one room, maybe the living room or around the kitchen table, and let each part speak. Listen to them all, and then, when you've heard everyone, step out into the garden, drop down into that sacred space where you can just be, and from that place, that grounded, peaceful, spacious place, ask your wise self, what do I know? What's the truth here? What do I choose? And then come back into the house and share that decision with your parts. The house and the garden work together beautifully because it allows you some breathing space in a mind that can feel very chaotic and crowded. The house is where you engage with your parts, where you create that internal home and practice integration. The garden is where you return to yourself, where you rest and just be. So let's bring this all together. We come back to the knowing that you are with yourself 24/7. You are the one relationship you can never leave. So what kind of internal environment do you want to create for yourself? Do you want to live in a war zone where parts are constantly fighting for control? Or do you want to live in a home where all the parts are welcome, they're all heard, and all the parts know that they're safe? You get to choose. An internal home feels like safety, like peace. All parts know they're welcome. No part has to fight for survival. It's spaciousness. There's room for all of your feelings, all of your needs, and all of your experiences. And when it gets too full, you can walk out into the garden and just breathe. It's compassion. When parts show up, they're met with kindness, not criticism. It gives you clarity. Your wise self is in charge, so decisions come from groundedness, not reactivity. And peace, this is the big one. There's no internal war. There's conversation and negotiation and collaboration. And of course, wholeness. You're not fragmenting yourself. You're integrating all of who you are. That's what it means to feel at home with yourself. Now, this doesn't need to be a big roundtable discussion for every single thing that goes on. Sometimes you'll just notice that something's got triggered and you're reacting. And in that moment, it's enough just to acknowledge. It's not about having a roundtable discussion with every single part in that moment. So in order to practice this, go back to the things that we've talked about in this podcast episode. Notice when a part is triggered, name it with awareness. bring to it some curiosity. Oh, I noticed that the critic has showed up, or the perfectionist feels particularly in charge today. I wonder why that is. Remain in the curiosity of it. You might not always get an instant answer, and that's okay. Trust that the answer will flow because your subconscious will continue working on it. Thank that part for showing up. It clearly needed or thought it needed to step in that moment. Step back into your wise self. Give yourself that pause, that space. Imagine taking some time in your garden away from it all for a moment if you need to. Ask your wise self, what does that version of you choose? And then choose that. This is a really nice way to work with yourself at times when you do have a bit of space and capacity. Maybe when you're out on a walk, or you're taking a vacation, or you just find yourself with a few moments to yourself. Close your eyes, imagine that internal home, play with it, use your imagination. Do you want to move anything around? Do you want to check in with a part of yourself that hasn't had a voice for a while? What do you have capacity for right now? Or do you want to just go and visit your garden and tend to that and see what that's like? Okay, so use your imagination here. All of this is done through your imagination. There is no right and wrong. The main thing here is to keep bringing the curiosity and compassion to each of these parts. This is not a one-time event. This is the inner work, right? Because here's what I want you to know. You deserve to feel at home with yourself. You deserve an internal environment that's safe, spacious, and compassionate. You deserve a house where all your parts have rooms, where they're all welcome, where they all know they belong. You deserve a garden where you can just drop down and just be, where you don't have to do anything, fix anything, or be anything other than present. You deserve to be with yourself without constant criticism, without constant war, without constant exhaustion. You deserve to know all your parts, to welcome all your parts, and to choose which part leads. You deserve wholeness. And wholeness doesn't mean you're perfect. It doesn't mean you've eliminated all the difficult parts or the parts of you that you'd rather not be there. Wholeness means you've integrated all who you are. You've created an internal home where all the parts are welcome. You've learned to walk through the house with curiosity and compassion. And you've learned to walk out into the garden when you just need to be. That's the work, and that's the journey. And that's what it means to map your inner landscape. So here's what I want you to take away from this episode. That it's not about being this one single entity. You are many parts, and that's a gift. You have all of these different parts, like the critic and the protector and the wounded child and so many more. And all of these parts developed for a reason. All of them are trying to help. All of them deserve to be heard, but not all of them get to drive. Integration is not about eliminating and suppressing parts. It's about welcoming all the parts or choosing which one leads. I hope you've seen through this episode that curiosity is what gives you your power back. It gives you choice where you didn't have any before. When a part takes over, you can stop and ask, what would the integrated version of this part do? What would my wise self choose? And that's profoundly life-changing. So here's my invitation to you this week. Create that internal home consciously. Design the house where all those parts live. Give them rooms that feel good. Visit them with curiosity and compassion. And know that you've always got the option of going down to the garden, your sacred space that's always there for you, where you can drop down into that space and just be. There's no need to try and work on all of your parts all at the same time. Just choose one. Choose one that feels like that's the one that's most triggered or is most reactive or most dominant, and begin to have this curious conversation with compassion with that part. So next week in episode 10, we're moving into stage 6 of the WholeHearted technique, where we talk about choosing yourself. This is a big topic, and I share in it something that is happening right now for me when it comes to choosing yourself, and what it is to choose yourself, if that means choosing your vision when it's something that not everyone else around you can see, what it means to choose yourself when that can mean standing alone. And for anyone who has people relying on them, whether that's a team, a family, a business, a whole infrastructure, choosing yourself can feel like you're standing on an edge. And we really dive into that next week. So thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing yourself. And I would love to hear from you in the comments what this episode has revealed to you, what parts feel like they are the loudest voices and which ones don't really get much of a say, and how this episode has shifted that relationship for you this week. And if you want to dive more into this work and really come into that place of wholeness, the I Am More Than Enough course is perfect for you. It's our self-study course that really guides you into this work and what it is to choose from this place of wholeness, to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you are more than enough, exactly as you are right now. Okay, there's a special discount on that at the moment, so I'll include the link in the show notes for this episode, and I really encourage you to go check that out. In the meantime, have a great week, and I will see you next Thursday.